It's not another Buffalo podcast, hosted by three of the most underqualified sports personalities this side of the canal. With John.
There's no way in hell that I can leave that in, right?
You don't think so?
Well, to quote Rage Against the Machine, what better place than here? And, what better time than now?
And Brando.
We have this trust built on, whatever it is, like Bibles and gold bricks and whatever Brandon Bean's drinking over there.
All right, welcome back to Not Another Buffalo Podcast. I'm here with my buddy Brando here on a Thursday evening. A little bit later this week. We've been going later and later each week, but it's the summer. Stuff happens. Schedules fill up. Brandon choking on vitamin water over there.
It's been a day.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
Sorry.
No,
so sorry.
All good. All good. Just so you guys know, this episode is brought to you by Small City Realty. If you're looking to buy, sell, or manage property in West New York, our guy, Zach Korzelius, you can call him at 585-409-1088. That's 585-409-1088. We got to come up with a jingle for that at some point because you just got to.
I think we can do that.
Yeah. Anyway, Zach Korzelius, Small City Realty. Zachary at smallcityrealestate.com is the email address for that. And I will put all that stuff in the show notes for you if you're looking to buy, sell, or manage property in Western New York. Got to have a good realtor. Got to have a guy you can trust. And the guy we trust is Zach Korzelius.
Yes, we do.
All right. Quick topic today. I thought it would be fun to run down the Bills' wide receiver depth chart. And not just the wide receivers, but the pass catchers, right?
Yep.
And predict where everybody kind of slots in based upon where we think they're going to finish in terms of yardage at the end of this upcoming season. So to recap last year, and also, by the way, later in the episode, we will get to the Stefon Diggs pink substance on a boat with Cardi B topic, because that's too juicy to not even mention on a podcast. But anyway, yes, ranking the Bills wide receivers. I guess I'll kick us off with last year's ranking. And if I hadn't sent it to you, I would have been like, hey, can you name this in order for a little bit? That would have been good trivia, but I already sent it to you because we were prepping for the episode. But number one was Khalil Shakir with 821 yards. Obviously, no 1,000-yard receivers on the Bills, which we kind of, that was a hot take that we had before last season, that there was going to be no 1,000-yard receivers, and I think we were right about that.
I think it's funny, too, because not that long ago, a few short years ago, we were pegging 3,000-yard receivers on this Buffalo Bills offense. Isaiah McKenzie, 1,000 yards. Cole Beasley, 1,000 yards. Steph Diggs, 1,000 yards. Yeah, right. That didn't happen.
Unfortunately, no. So anyway, and slotting in at 2 with just over 500 yards was Keon Coleman. Then Dalton Kincaid at 3, Mac Hollins at 4, who's no longer with us. He's on the Patriots. He's not dead. Dawson Knox is number 5.
Some people might think that it qualifies.
I was going to say, yeah. We'll see. Maybe it's one and the same. Dawson Knox, number 5. Amari Cooper, number 6. Ty Johnson, number 7. James Cook, number 8. Curtis Samuel, number 9. And Ray Davis at number 10. And then you got Tyrell Shavers and Quentin Morris after that. Tyrell Shavers with that one very nice 69-yard catch to slot him in at 11th place. So one reception, 69 yards. Looking pretty good there for Tyrell Shavers. So anyway, not a lot of Tyrell Shavers discussion in what I think we're about to talk about.
One second, John. Tyrell Shavers will be discussed from the months of August and September, when the preseason comes around and we're looking for something to talk about. And is it the best preseason storyline? Is this the best preseason wide receiver we've ever had? It'll happen. People will be talking about it.
People will talk about it, but I don't think that a lot of these guys, whether it's Prather, Virgil, KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers, I feel like those guys are going to get less love this year because of the number of spots available and how many mid-tier wide receivers we have. Like, we have a full wide receiver room of guys that, I mean, besides Khalil Shakir, who's I think is a solid number 2.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a dig. Like, Khalil Shakir is great. He's a slot receiver. He's not your outside number 1, prototypical number 1 guy. But we have a lot of guys that could slot in at 3 through 6, right? 2 through 6.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those guys, and we don't really have like a number 1. So that's what makes this debate pretty fun. So I don't think with the number of guys, I mean, you've got, Keon, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, and also Elijah Moore. That's going to push everybody down the depth chart far enough that I think the interesting conversations about a 6th and 7th wide receiver aren't going to be as interesting, because Remember, most of the time they carry 5 now these days with their opening day roster, not even 6.
I don't know if they're going to.
We used to talk about will they keep 7? It'll probably be 6, but we'll see. They've rostered 5 before, and not really ever 7. So
this is a super intriguing conversation, John. Before we get into it, I mean, if you look at this list that we had from last year, you got 83 vacated targets just with Mac Hollins and Amari Cooper not coming back. And then you look at the new guys. Elijah Moore had 97 targets last year. And do you know Josh Palmer off the top of your head how many targets he had last year?
I don't know.
I'll tell you in about 4 seconds. 63 targets. So you 63? Got 91 and 63 coming in, and you had 83 going out. So the numbers are interesting. And then you don't have full seasons from Coleman or Kincaid. I mean, Cooper was hurt, but Curtis Samuel was hurt also. He only played 14 games. So this is going to be, the more that I look at this chart that you sent and thinking about these guys that we brought in, I'm more excited about this offense because I think there's guys that can get open. These guys earned targets for their other teams and they're coming here. They have shown that they can get open and that they're getting the ball from crappy quarterbacks. So even if their targets go down a little bit, their efficiencies are definitely going to go up. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say we're going to have 3,000-yard receivers here for this team, but we might have 3 800-yard receivers. And like a 700-yard receiver. But
after last year only having one 800-yard receiver, that would be big. So I'd say maybe 3 over 600 would be, but that is more than last year. Only 1 over 600 last year.
Yeah.
Again, Keon Coleman gets hurt. But let's talk about the number 1 wide receiver. Who's going to slot in number 1? Last year it was pretty firmly Khalil Shakir with 300 yards, almost 300 yards over Keon Coleman. Yeah. Obviously, Keon missed a couple of games with injuries. Who is he returning as your number 1 for next year?
I don't know, man. My heart wants to say Dalton Kincaid.
Really?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, to play only 13 games and get 75 targets, he had almost 20 full targets more than Keon did in the same amount of games. The connection with Allen and Kincaid was off. Kincaid had the most uncatchable balls thrown at him. I don't want to say in the league, but it's like way up there in the league, and it's definitely number 1 on the Bills. But to see Keon, I saw the picture of him today. He looks noticeably stronger. I think they said he put on 10 pounds of muscle. Kincaid, they want him to get stronger. But I think the way that this system is run, the tight ends are the one, should be the one consistent. The receivers are going to be here and there. But Kincaid should go like 5 for 50 every week all season long. And that should put him at 800 yards. So,
which is kind of what Khalil Shakir was last year. Khalil Shakir was 5 for 50 to 75 yards per game. But
I think it's a coin flip between Shakir and Kincaid with Coleman coming in second. I don't know which one to put first. I mean, I'll flip a cap right here.
I mean, I'll tell you what I have for number 1. Yeah. I originally wrote down Shakir, and then I was like, let's make this interesting. I can make a case that Keon Coleman will be the number 1 wide receiver on the Bills this year if he morphs into what the Bills want him to be.
Yeah.
That outside wide receiver that might not be as consistent in their stat line as Khalil Shakir with 5 catches, but you might see Keon Coleman with 3 catches, 75 yards. Yeah. A great day where he, is getting these longer catches down the field, which is what the Bills offense would love to do versus this single high safety that they've been facing if guys can get open downfield. So, 3 for 75, 6 for 100, all those kind of stat lines would be amazing. Can we get 400-yard games out of Keon Coleman this year?
That would be a lot, I think. 4 100-yard games would be impressive. We probably don't know that. I don't know who had the most 100-yard games on the Bills this year.
Khalil Shakir had 200-yard games last year.
Okay.
107 versus Seattle and 106 versus the Rams.
Okay.
Then his next 2 games, he's got a couple of 70-yard games, a couple of 60-yard games, a bunch of 50-yard games, and a couple below that.
Okay.
So I think it's not unrealistic to say that Keon Coleman should have 300 to 400-yard games this season, right?
Yeah.
Is that's the step that they're asking him to make? Probably?
Yeah. 2 things with this, John. I think the schedule that we play this year, you're talking about the Rams game. You're talking about Seattle. Seattle was iffy. We're going to play good teams and we're going to have to score. So I'm thinking of the Lions game, thinking of the Rams game, thinking of the Chiefs game. The way that this offense plays those games is different than how they play the Titans and how they play the Jets. and how they played the Dolphins. But
theoretically, right? But you never know when, like you said, the Rams game last year was a total shootout and was tons of points, tons of scoring. You never know when it's going to turn into that. I wouldn't expect the Chiefs game to turn into that, right? That's not going to be a 100-yard receiving game for Keon Coleman. But can he find 4 games out of that schedule? Even 2 against the Jets, which, I mean...
Saucy. When you put it like that, I mean, you're talking about half a season production in 4 games. And you got 13 more to play. I think if we expect to have 4 100-yard games, Keon should be pushing 1,100 yards on the season then.
He should be, but wouldn't that be kind of what you would ask about your first round? If he was a quote unquote first round wide receiver, which I know he wasn't, but isn't that kind of what you would expect?
Yes.
Second year?
Yes. And I think it's funny if he was a first round, but he wasn't. He was a second round. And I don't like to hope. I've said this so many times. I hate gambling on hope. I don't want to hope that we have a linebacker that can step up and play. You remember that clip? I talked about that. I don't want to hope that McDermott can figure this out in the playoffs. I want to know that this guy can put something together because he's done it before. And that was the beauty of Stephon Diggs before the pink powder candy, not candy, drugs.
Before the fall off at the end of his Buffalo Bills career.
Yes, right. Trying to say. And I the hope is interesting because we don't really know what we're going to get. The ceiling is there, but Shakir, we don't have to hope for him to do this. Kincaid, you're hoping a little bit, I think.
Yes. I think you're hoping a lot with Kincaid. I think he's a great player, but there's definitely some hope in there.
There is some hope, but I feel like what he has put on film, the extra year of development, that 3rd year jump that we've seen with the Buffalo Bills players has been quite regularly happening for a lot of guys on this roster.
For a lot of them, not all, but for a lot. We're going back to like Harrison Phillips and stuff like that when we cite that also.
Yeah, Christian Benford too. I mean, Terrell Bernard, yes, all
Greg
good
Rousseau,
examples. James Cook. So I think there's potential there, but I think hoping is not what I want to ever talk about. So I
think you can't avoid it talking about this wide receiver room.
No,
because
you can't.
You don't have a 1, 2, 3 proven wide receivers. That's why this conversation is interesting. So anyway, just read out your top 5 before we get too far into this, because I don't want to spend too much like number by number. I want to see where you slide in. We'll separate it by 1 through 5 and then 6 through 10.
All right, we're gonna go Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman.
Okay.
Elijah Moore.
Really?
Josh Palmer.
Elijah Moore ahead of Josh Palmer.
I think so.
Those are 2 that I thought about because I kind of think of them in tandem here because obviously both coming in free agent contracts in different ways. The reason I put Joshua Palmer ahead of Elijah Moore, not really in context of how they're going to fit in the offense, just on who's going to be on the field more. Yeah. I know that teams love to say that people's contract doesn't matter as far as playing time and stuff like that. But I think there's more incentive to get Josh Palmer on the field and into that spot. And Elijah Moore is going to have to do far and above what Josh does in practice and training camp to surpass him on the depth chart.
That's a good point.
I think so. I think it's his spot to lose because of what they paid him.
That's super fair. Super fair.
As much as, if you ask McDermott that in a press conference, he'd say, every spot is up for grabs. It's a competition. Like that's not really like actually that's exactly like Brandon Beane saying we don't draft for need, right? It's like, you can say that, but it's not really true. Yeah. It's not really true. So anyway, my top 5, Keon Coleman, number 1.
Okay.
Khalil Shakir, number 2. I think Khalil Shakir is firmly top 2. I could put him at 1 or 2.
Okay.
Josh Palmer at 3. Dalton Kincaid at 4. I feel like the way that this Bills offense goes, they kind of go back and forth between, they've been tight end and running back heavy these past few years. Dalton Kincaid came in in 3rd last year, and I'm bumping him down a notch because I think that Joshua Palmer is going to elevate this wide receiver room a little bit. Keon Coleman is going to be better, and Khalil Shakir, even if he just maintains, these wide receivers should be getting more yards than they did last year. I would say that the wide receiver production last year was a little bit disappointing overall. Yeah. I get that they won games. I don't care what it looks like. I'm just saying, like, you could have gotten a little bit more out of your wide receivers. Maybe that would have helped you win games by a little bit more. I don't want to complain about it. But anyway, I have Curtis Samuel in at number 5.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Up from number 9.
Yeah. Okay.
If he can play the way that he did towards the end of last season.
Okay. I'm here for it.
That's actually one spot above where I have Elijah Moore.
Okay.
Because again, I feel like it's Curtis Samuel's position to lose and Elijah Moore's position to gain.
Yeah.
Now, Elijah Moore could come out. I think he has a higher ceiling than Curtis Samuel, but I think Curtis Samuel has a higher floor because he's here. He's in the system for a year.
Super true.
And hopefully he can start off the year without a soft tissue injury.
Yeah.
Which we've already seen, Joey Bosa pulled his calf already and is going to be out until training camp.
That's concerning.
So, yep, love that. Which, to be honest, on this show, we haven't really gotten hyped about that move that much.
I'm not that hyped about it. I don't know.
I'll be hyped about it if I see something late in the season and he can add something. Like, I'm not mad about it by any means, but I'm not investing my hope into Joey Bosa as the savior for this Bills defense.
Yeah.
If that's a
great point. All of what you're saying, John, is somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about when it comes to the contracts and stuff. I didn't even think about it in that realm of subjectivity of the contract, who's been here longer and who hasn't been here longer. But Elijah Moore is so intriguing to me.
He is. He's the biggest wild card, I feel like, where you could slot him in at 2 and you can slot him in at 6,
and
I feel like.
You know when he was drafted?
Very early. Wasn't he a second round pick?
34th overall, kind of like Coleman. Close. Yep. And I don't want to call it a comparison, but I'm going to call it a comparison. Do you know who he reminds me of?
Who?
Stephon Diggs.
Really?
Great route runner, smaller guy, got open, gets targets still, plays for the Jets and the freaking Browns, has like 9 quarterbacks throwing him the ball named Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson. Kadarius Caldwell Pope.
We don't hate on Tyrod in this show.
I love Tyrod. That's not hating. But it doesn't mean his receivers are going to produce great when he's playing quarterback. So
it's true.
And I feel like it's not the same. Diggs had great seasons. He had Hall of Fame plays with the Vikings and the Minnesota Miracle. But I think when Elijah Moore gets on this field, he is exactly what Josh Allen loves in a wide receiver. He's going to be open. It's not a contested throw like it would be to Keon. The way that Elijah Moore can run these routes, I think Josh Palmer is a little bit more like Keon Coleman, boundary guy. Still a decent route runner, but he's going to use his size and leverage. Shakir runs open. And that's why Josh Allen likes him. Kincaid is open most of the time because of the scheme. And I think Elijah Moore is going to be running open regularly if he can get on the field. And I'm not going to go down the length that I did with Curtis Samuel last year because I said the same thing about him last year. But I think having this collection of guys, there is such a good blend of great route runners and physical talent now. Looking into this project that we have here, it makes me feel pretty good about this offense. A lot better than I had thought maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and not getting this number one guy. Just kind of diving into it.
You and I are really good at talking ourselves into the best case scenario when we have these conversations.
Yes.
Because we can see the path to. We just talked about the path to Keon Coleman getting 1,000 yards. What do you think that prop would be on DraftKings tomorrow? Plus 400?
Say plus 300, plus 400, yeah.
400, yeah, right. It's not likely. It's not the most likely outcome. But we can talk ourselves into it, 7 out of 7 days of the week. But again, that's why we talked ourselves into Curtis Samuel, who had an history, who it's reared his head. It goes so deep.
This goes so far back to when we were in 2007 Spanish class and we talked ourselves into the Bills going undefeated.
Yeah,
do you remember? I know you remember that.
There's just path to victory against the Patriots twice a year. Tom Brady, 2000. That was 2007 too, right?
When are we in 7th grade? It has to be 07.
I think 06. That was it's right around there. So anyway, do you want to talk about 6 through 10? This is mostly should be tight ends and running backs.
Yeah,
right?
I still think Curtis Samuel is going to be right up there. I hope he could be 6. Dawson Knox has a role in this offense, could be 7. James Cook, Ty Johnson, and then throw in anybody. Josh
Ray
Allen
Davis.
To be number 10. He catches.
No.
Yeah.
Probably Ray Davis would be your last pick there.
Yeah, Ray Davis had
I have a hot take on this one. So I went 6 Elijah Moore, which we already talked about. Dawson Knox at 7. He was 5th last year in yards. But again, bringing in Elijah Moore and Joshua Palmer, I think slots him back a little bit. Ideally, if stuff goes well. 8, I have Ray Davis above the other running backs. I feel like Ray Davis flashed this year and is not going to have the, what do I want to call it? The rookie shoulder weights on or something like that. Or the rookie. Yeah, the rookie training wheels. The rookie training wheels are going to be off. I think they're going to trust him a little bit more. I think he's going to see the field a little bit more this year. And if he can show, he definitely flashed in the passing game a little bit, a couple of big receptions. Only had 189 yards last year. So I'm not expecting a huge thing, but it would be big if he came out ahead of James Cook and Ty Johnson. Last year, Ty Johnson actually led the running backs in receiving yards with James Cook right in behind him. Ty Johnson obviously having a couple big receptions along the way and being that third down back, which helps. But I think if they shift a little bit of that to Ray Davis, then he might be able to lead that trio. But again, that's a hot take. If you were to do the most likely outcome, I think it would be Ty Johnson again, then James Cook, then Ray Davis, kind of how they slotted in last year.
Is there any merit to kind of like what you said about the contracts and earning their time versus taking it from somebody else? Is there any merit in saying James Cook tops Ty Johnson next year just to see if he has the ability to be a 3-down back before they pay him or they let him walk? I mean, one way or another, they can't play him 50% of the snaps and pay him $15 million. I was looking at other NFL running backs, and the one that stood out to me was Kamara, who does not play the full games. I think he was like 59% of the snap count. I think he makes like $12 million a year. And I think that's high. I don't think the Saints would want to pay that right now in their salary cap situation. But I feel like as this Bills brass looks at this offense, what are they going to do with James Cook? We know McDermott loves James Cook. The guy didn't love him to start, but worked his way through his fumbling, through his lack of pass protection into this role that McDermott's like, oh, we're going to give it to him.
Still probably third in the depth chart of pass protection.
Yes.
Right? Not the best pass protector out of the three.
But I would be curious if they give him more chances, not even to pass protect, but on third down as a route runner. But I love Ty Johnson so much. He's such a good value. This is why you don't want to pay James Cook, man. Go get somebody else. Go draft somebody. Let Ty Johnson be the third down back. Because if you have a third down back and you can't put him out on the field, or if you have a good running back and you can't put him down as a third down back, you cannot pay that guy. So I would be curious to see if that ripples into any actual on-field schematic discussion with McDermott. Does he say, we're going to play James Cook more? We got to see what we got here. We're going to let him go 75% of the offensive snaps this year. Or is McDermott going to say Ty Johnson and Ray Davis earn this and they're going to keep taking these snaps? So there's 85 targets to go around. Between the running backs, though, what do we got? Ty Johnson, 25 targets. James Cook, 38 targets. And Ray Davis, 19. So what are we looking at? That's
I guess your most likely scenario is James Cook leads the 3 in receiving this year, just based on the fact that Ty Johnson had a couple of really long receptions and some very unlikely ones. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking about regressing to the mean, you think James Cook, also had a couple big drops last year. So catches a couple more of those. Ty Johnson doesn't have as many crazy down the field 40-yard catches. Mm-hmm. Then you're probably going to slot them in, Cook, Johnson, Ray Davis, most likely. But I expect Ray Davis to increase his receiving yards by quite a bit this year.
We're looking at 105 targets between the three of them.
Yeah.
That's a healthy number for your running backs.
It is. That might go down just based on how much they threw to running backs last year, and how much more those targets will shift to wide receivers if things go the way that they want.
This is another good discussion in itself that we could talk about for a whole other episode, is with this personnel that the Bills have, are they going to be a 50-50 run pass team again? And I think it doesn't really matter because they are good at game planning specifically for the team that they're playing. I would like to see more second down passes. And I think if we see that, maybe you see some of these numbers go down for James Cook. Some of these numbers go down for Ray Davis, but Ty Johnson's already on the field on third down. So I would expect him to be the most consistent guy out there. But if McDermott is so hell-bent on running first and second down again, I don't know. This is an interesting philosophy. With this talent that they have in the wide receiver room, I hope they give him a chance. I'd like to see Josh throw the ball more than 30 times, more than he did last year. It's
so funny hearing you say, with the talent that we have in the wide receiver room, like we're both saying like they're probably going to throw the ball to wide receivers more because they have more talent than last year. And I think that's true that they have more talent than last year.
Definitely true. Definitely true. Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer are, I mean, look about Matt Collins was number 4.
We added 2 solid number 3 receivers.
Yes.
Right.
But I still think with potential to be 2s when you have to be. I mean, Josh Palmer had 750 yards in his rookie season. He had a number 2 season, and Elijah Moore had freaking scrubs throwing him the ball 93 times in a season. So I think that there is such growth available there that you're looking at borderline 2s and 3s, and you got Matt Collins, Dawson Knox as your 4 and 5 at 350 yards apiece. I would expect these numbers. I would expect the 1 to be 1,000-yard receiver. We should have at least 1,000-yard receiver this year. But I think 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all going to be 500 to 800-yard receivers instead of going 500 to 200-yard receivers.
Yeah.
And that's a huge elevation of depth everywhere. And you can afford somebody to get hurt. Curtis Samuel can deal with an injury, and you can still put these guys in and play. Whereas last year, we talked about it. I mean, when Khalil went out in that Ravens game, or he hurt his ankle, that offense stalled out. And then they go and they get the Houston game where Josh throws a dud. He threw 9 duds out of 30 passes, and then we get Cooper, and we score 7 more points per game. So I think those bodies on the offense are going to allow this offense to really be productive no matter what happens, as long as Josh stays healthy.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good discussion. I'd be curious if we write down our lists and keep it somewhere. If we look back at it at the end of the season, which we're terrible about doing.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to go look back and do that.
Do you have a notes app open right now?
I do. I have it written down in my notes, so we'll see if I can find it next year. Put a big label on it. But anyway, other spicy news, Stefon Diggs, a little bit of drama in New England before the season is even getting going.
I don't know if I would call it in New England because he did not report to the voluntary workouts because he was in Miami Beach. So drama in Miami. We love to hear that. Drama in New England, we love to hear that too. So,
but anyway, for those who haven't seen it, there's a video of him on a boat with a bunch of women and his girlfriend Cardi B. And I guess he flashes some bag of pink powder. And I'm not going to speculate on what it is, but it does lead me to my top 10 for today's episode, which is, the top 10 Stefon Diggs explanations for the pink powder, which I think is more interesting than what it actually is. So, WEEI, the Boston radio station, everyone's been, talking about what it is. And it doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to read my top 10 things that Stefon Diggs might say it is. So without further ado, top 10 Stefon Diggs explanations for the pink powder. Number 10, it's just Kool-Aid. I stopped drinking the Patriots kind weeks ago. Number 9, oh, my bad. I thought it was Pink Powder Club. Number 8, it's pre-workout. Number 7, the vitamins just hit better this way. Number 6, it's Foxborough Fun Dip.
Fun Dip.
Number 5, how else are you supposed to cope with being on the Patriots?
Yeah, it's just straight up honesty right there.
Number 4, it's Metamucil. Got to stay regular.
Yes, that's super true.
Number 3, you guys haven't been raw dogging Crystal Light?
Crystal Light, the hydration packs?
Yes. Yeah. Number 2, it's just what's left of my patience. And the number 1 Stefon Diggs explanation for the pink powder, just some ashes from the last bridge I burned. Just from the latest one.
Houston colors? Right. Or Bills colors, right?
I think pink is Houston colors-ish more.
Yeah.
I don't know. They both have red. Doesn't matter.
I don't like seeing this guy doing this stupid stuff. I said it again. I always refer to the story when we got caught on the school roof because somebody took a picture and posted it on Instagram, and a concerned taxpayer mailed it into my school. But I always give him the lecture. I'm like, kids are going to be kids, but don't record yourself doing stupid stuff. Mike Vrabel sees the video. He's like, what am I supposed to say, man? You're caught pink-handed here with a jar of whatever it is saying, oh, don't do too much. Go have some fun and come back. Like, what are you supposed to say to that? And you're on a boat with 20 people. You got 2 celebrities there. Somebody's got to check the phones in a little bin when you get on the boat. I feel like you put them in a bin, put them in a lockbox, put them away. You don't need to record your situation with whatever it is you're doing. Just live in the moment and your life would be easier.
I think the real fix is just don't be doing stupid stuff in the first place.
Yeah, something like that.
That's the easiest thing. But I have a little bit of a hot take on this and kind of a thought, and maybe it's not that hot. I don't know. You look back at the way things panned out with Diggs and stuff like that, and you can go back to moments and you can point to moments and things, and you're like, okay, this is kind of where tension maybe started, and this is where him and Josh started drifting apart, and this is when he kind of set out on this path. And it all comes from losses, right? Like all this stuff, winning fixes everything. There's a lot of truth in that statement. I think if the Bills had won the Super Bowl or 13 seconds hadn't happened, I feel like Diggs is still a Buffalo Bill
for sure
this year.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to think about things that way because I mean, obviously these losses weigh on these guys. And I'm not saying that it justifies anything that they do down the line after that, but I think it's a good symbol of how much it weighs on these guys and how much they care and what competitors they are. And Stefan, I think I know deep down, he's a good guy that I hope, has just been kind of, I don't know. It depends on who you choose to be around, who you're influenced by. And
Cardi B.
I'm not saying Cardi B is a terrible person. I have no idea.
I'm not saying
Cardi
that either.
B
I'm saying that's
like
who he's around now, right?
Right. Right. It's like, the people you choose to be around, they say your 5 closest friends influence who you are.
Yeah.
Like 90% of who you are is your 5 closest friends, and they have a big impact on you. So who you choose to hang out with and your judgment about people has a lot to do with who you become and who you are and where you see yourself in the world and stuff like that. So I just hope he continues to surround himself with good people, or not necessarily continues to, but does, at some point. Because again, he seems like he has a good heart at the center of it. We all knew and loved the Stefan Diggs when he was here and they were winning.
I don't care. Yeah,
and
I do love him.
When stuff went south, things were said. People were angry. People were upset. He was obviously just as disillusioned with some things as a lot of people were. So I don't know.
I still think
I think it's an incredibly nuanced issue. Yes. And you'd like to see him out there making better decisions and stuff like that. But again,
it's stupid. And he's not like he's 21 or 22. He's 31, right? Live and learn a little here, buddy. But also, things that were said, I think the only thing that you could say that he said negatively was when, Steph Diggs made Josh Allen or Josh Allen made Steph Diggs, right? And he says, "You sure?" Right? Remember that tweet?
That was a little bit of it. Obviously, there was some more stuff after that. I really don't, we don't need to hash out all the details.
Do you remember the interview with Kay Adams, like 2 weeks before he gets traded, and he talks about how much he loved Buffalo and how he's going to show up and be here? Yeah. I don't think he ever talked negatively in the press about these people, except for that tweet about Josh. And then he goes back after Josh wins MVP and then gives him his flowers, right?
Right. But then again, also, asked for the trade in the first place. So
not publicly, though.
Still, there's something there.
But also, anyway, like you said though about the pain of losing, and I mean, he got cheated on by the coaching staff in that 13-second game, right? I feel like you could kind of describe that analogy there. You are giving your all in this crazy game, and you get cheated by a communication breakdown by a squib kick and your defense, and it's like, how do you trust that again? And you're the top competitor. So I get that part of it where it's like it does weigh on him. And it does show that he cared. But it also shows a guy like Deion Dawkins and Josh Allen and Micah Hyde. Are guys that would stick through that. They stayed. Yeah. They stayed. So credit to them for doing that. And Diggs handled it how he wanted to handle it. And he's not here anymore. And I had to take his jersey off my wall. So I have Keon up there now. So let's go, Keon. All right. I had those 3 holy candles, right? Yeah. With the, Josh and Von Miller and Stefan Diggs were the 3. And we're down to 1 at this point. So Stefan Diggs is the burn has been demoted to the bathroom candle, unfortunately. Oh, not the bathroom candle. But it's important. Yeah. All right. Well, we should get out of here. You guys know where to find us on all platforms at Not Buff Podcast. Shoot us a tweet, whatever, if you're still calling him that. Shoot an X. I refuse to call it X. Anyway, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Shoot us an email, notanotherBillsPodcast@gmail.com. Love hearing from you guys. Thanks again for listening. It's been cool to see the listenership maintain throughout the summer. Yes. Always cool. We love the Bills as much as you guys do. So it's cool to
keep going on that. So anyway, we'll see you guys next week. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.